In Rise of Kingdoms, there are a lot of different commanders, and each commander has 5 skills, and especially with legendary commanders, each skill is extremely important, and they usually add something extremely valuable to that commander's kit. But today, I'll be telling you about the 10 most useless skills in the game. This doesn't mean the commanders are bad, but it just means that they have skills that are completely useless. So if you are interested in investing in legendary commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, and you want to maybe skip those extremely bad skills, you need to check out today's video. Let's start off with a few things. First of all, I've tried to only include commanders that are somewhat in the meta. I'm not going to do commanders like, for example, Xiao Xiao and say, oh guys, Xiao Xiao's stats are low and that's bad. I've gone with commanders that are in the meta in some shape or form, or a lot of players have access to them, and they've got a skill in there that's just not that valuable. Also, this does not mean that they are bad commanders by any means. Some of the commanders I will mention today, you'll be like, but they're not bad commanders. It's not that, it's just they may have a skill in their kit that is nowhere near as valuable as their other skills. Anyways, let's start this off with currently ranked 10, and I put this at Saladin's 4th skill. This skill gives him 15% increased damage to garrisons when attacking cities. However, he cannot plunder resources. And the reason this is so low is because also Saladin doesn't need his expertise. So why would you go for Saladin's skill that's rally related pretty much? Because you're not going to really swarm cities with Saladin nowadays. Plus, you cannot plunder resources with him, so you're missing out on all the resources, which is usually the main reason you're zeroing a city. So yes, it's an interesting skill, and I think it was way better back in the day. But nowadays, in Saladin, who is a commander that a lot of players still use, I think that is definitely quite a useless skill. And also his expertise, yes, it's very nice to have, and I think it is quite powerful, getting 300 extra damage factor and 20% march speed, but for a free-to-play low spender, you honestly don't need it, and this 4th skill is something you wouldn't need if you're not going for the expertise, and that's why it is ranked 10. I will also say it's kind of hard to find commanders with really bad skills because, to be honest, Lilith does a good job by making all the skills pretty equal. Coming in at number 9, we have Leonidas, and he's a very strange commander. When I say his skills are useless, I don't mean they're bad, I just mean it's kind of useless to invest in them. If we look at his active skill, it's actually really good to max that because you're getting a nice health bonus, and his second skill, you're getting a lot of stats, so really, past 5511, Leo becomes a useless investment, not because his skills are bad, but because they're just so good at the level they're at. For example, his third skill, if you don't level it up at all, you get a cell shield of 600, plus you get the attack bonus. While it's only at 3%, attack is pretty much useless. And is it really worth putting in probably around 100 to 200 gold heads to get that skill to a level where you have 800 self-shield, which is only 200 more? It's actually not worth it, and the skill is already powerful enough on its own where Leonidas performs fine. You don't need to go and get that maxed skill to benefit from it. That's why that's really not a good investment. And the same thing can go for his 4th skill. You've already got half of the damage bonus. What's the real point in going and getting the other half for upwards of 400 gold heads? Plus, Leonidas' expertise is not that useful, because doing 400% increased damage when you're below 10% units is pretty useless, to be honest, because once you reach 10% units, you're already dealing like no damage, and if someone's hitting you with 400k troops, they don't care, you're going to die regardless. So yes, his expertise is decent. I mean, like, it's going to make you trade 1 for 1 when you reach 10% units, but it's not amazing, and that's why there's no real point in getting his 2 last skills, since they're already so good on their own. Then in number 8, we have Minamoto, and I think that the reason he is number 8 and not higher is because that his barbarian damage is still useful outside of the open field. The current meta barbarian fort rally for most players would be a Minamoto with a Cao Cao, Minamoto with a Nevsky, any Minamoto combo. Yes, technically Moctezuma is better, but only by like 10 sev wounds. So Minamoto's third skill is it's actually completely useless in the open field, and completely useless when you're just fighting normal barbarians. But if you're doing fort rallies, or you're rallying things such as the Lost Kingdom Temple, because, you know, that is something that's really difficult to take down sometimes in a newer kingdom, or you're rallying some holy sites, which are also difficult to take down, especially if you're in a smaller kingdom, then Minamoto's skill can be somewhat useful. But for the open field, mostly it is completely useless. Coming in at number 7, we have Boudica Prime, because her 4th skill is pretty much completely useless. This is because Boudica Prime, her 4th skill is giving her pretty much just a bit of healing. That's all she's getting out of this. Yeah, she gets 5% damage to infantry, but it is useless after that. And pretty much for the open field, you're only getting that 5% damage to infantry. And the only reason she doesn't rank higher on this list, and I did initially put her higher, but I thought over it again, is because her expertise can be somewhat useful getting the chance to dispel silence and the extra 10% all damage. And that's the only reason she is still at rank 7 and not like rank 2 or 3 where I initially put her. Though you could say that for most players, you don't even want to expertise Boudica, and in that situation, that 4th skill is literally completely useless unless you're AoE farming and you want to get the healing factor. But at that point, you're going to expertise her, so then it ranks low, that's the thing. So with Boudica, she's definitely around a rank 7 on average, and I think that the 4th skill is her most useless skill, so for most players, you could just max the first 3 skills and she'd be fine. Coming in at number 6, we have YSG, but not really only YSG. It's also pretty much any commander that has garrison/watchtower buffs. Anything that's buffing a watchtower or making you kill a watchtower faster is probably the most useless thing in the game, because within around 5 turns, a city's watchtower is dead. They don't really sustain themselves that long. They are pretty much gone almost instantly. They only have 50,000 troops, and if a rally's hitting you, sometimes for upwards of like 20 to 30,000 a tick, that watchtower is done for pretty much instantly. So any skills that are related to watchtowers are almost useless. So YSG's 3rd skill, and then Richard I's 4th skill is also related to watchtowers, and once again is a pretty useless skill. So anything very related to watchtowers is going to be extremely useless, especially if it's a watchtower buff to your own watchtowers if you're being a city garrison. Yes, he is giving himself 10% garrison attack, but is probably the most useless stat in such a low number that it doesn't even matter. And like I said, the watchtower is completely useless. Coming in at rank 5, we have Artemisia, and it is her expertise. I know you might be thinking, well, that's a bit weird. Why wouldn't I say her garrison skill is bad? Well, that's because no one really runs Artemisia as a garrison, so there's no point talking about her garrison skill. It's more to do with her expertise, especially in this meta. I think, honestly, there are situations where your expertise on an Artemisia actually makes her weaker. Yes, they are going to take an additional 1,200 damage factor like the target, but they're dealing 15% extra skill damage to you, and there are commanders out there which hit freaking hard. Like, if you give a Boudica Prime 15% more skill damage from your Artemisia, and she hits you back, she's dealing like 2,700 skill damage at that point. So, I really, really dislike how Artemisia is giving that skill damage buff, and it actually does make her expertise sometimes a bad thing to get. I think it would be quite obvious that Artemisia's expertise is actually going to make her worse, especially if newer cav commanders come in with extremely high damage factor. Coming in at number 4, we have Guan Yu, and a commander that everyone really likes, but I'm sure you all know that his 2nd skill is completely useless. Like, when you look at that Guan Yu 2nd skill, you're thinking, what was Lilith thinking? I don't think a glass cannon, like the most glass cannon infantry commander in the game, is going to be a good rally, and the reason it's extremely useless is because if you want to rally with a Guan, you need open field control, and you need to launch like a triple rally. If you want to benefit from the Guan chain silencing people, you need to have basically a triple rally going with perfect timing. So why would you rally with a Guan Yu if you want to triple rally with him, when you could just triple rally with like a Boudica and a Henry and then a Nevsky and a Joan and like a Tariq or something like that? That's going to destroy whatever you're rallying. A Guan Yu, on the other hand, yeah, he's going to kill it eventually, but you need complete field control. You need to sustain that rally for a while. And the only thing that's really giving you is the benefit of knowing that the garrison's not going to throw an active skill. So Guan Yu's 2nd skill is pretty much his most useless skill, but also his expertise is fairly low value, which is why it makes this 2nd skill even worse. His expertise, if you want to get it, all it does is make you deal some more skill damage whenever you get a shield, and most shield commanders nowadays either don't work well with Guan. So for example, Leonidas he's just not in the meta anymore. Alexander the Great is too squishy with Guan. CPO, I'd say I'd rather put him with a Sargon or a Tariq. Sargon, I'd rather put with a Tariq or a CPO. So Guan Yu's expertise definitely isn't benefiting as much as it used to nowadays compared to when he first released, since everyone was running Guan Alex. Put them together and you'd be dealing a ton of extra skill damage, but nowadays it's definitely not as valuable. Coming in at rank 3, we have Mulan, and this is because Mulan has a skill that is pretty much useless forever. I don't think that Mulan's 3rd skill, which is an experience bonus, is going to be useful in any situation at all. I have never ever seen someone come up to me and say, you know what I'm grateful for? Mulan's massive experience bonus. So I think that most players can agree an experience bonus is extremely useless past the... Wow, I got the experience bonus. Past the really early game. Mulan herself is actually a really good buffing commander. But XP, yes, it can be okay in the early game because a lot of players are down bad on experience tomes. But as you can see, a veteran player like myself is going to be absolutely loaded up with experience tomes that it's pretty much useless, and even then, you don't get that much experience from barbarians. You only get a fair amount from doing temple guards, and even then, they are rare to come by in Home Kingdom. And even then, by the time you reach KVK, you've probably got commanders at a fairly high level. If not, you can just kill guardians with your commanders normally, and they're going to level up at a fairly nice pace. You don't need to have an experience bonus for a whole entire skill slot. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth can it get worse than a Mulan experience bonus? And yeah, let me tell you, it does. Nebu's expertise is probably one of the most useless skills in the whole entire game, because after spending 690 gold heads and one of his skills being a rally skill, all you get in return is 500 extra direct damage factor to your current target. It's not added to his AoE to make it a 2000. It's not like it's a second smaller AoE. It's just 500 direct damage factor. That's pretty much a flick on your enemies. It's not going to do that much. And for the cost of an expertise, especially for the open field where you don't want his rally skill, that is probably the most useless expertise in the whole entire game. And expertise is technically a skill, so Nebu's skill is definitely extremely useless. Other than that though, Nebu's kit is extremely good, but nowadays, he's not an amazing rally. He's okay if you don't want to get swarmed, but I mean, most open field players shouldn't be getting his third skill either, though his expertise definitely is one of the most useless skills, pretty much providing you absolutely nothing. Coming in at rank 1, we have a skill that in some situations can literally make the commander weaker. This is Sargon the Great's 4th skill, and the reason this skill is so bad is because literally, if you do not max the skill before you use it, Sargon is going to trade worse. If you have a Sargon, for example, at 5511, and you have that 4th skill unlocked, your Sargon is going to trade worse than if you had a Sargon at 5510, not even unlocking the 4th skill. This is because Sargon, his 4th skill, what happens is once your opponent reaches 10 stacks of Ord, which is the debuff Sargon places on your opponents, basically making them take more skill damage, what happens is he pretty much takes the Ord away from them to deal a small amount of damage factor of 500, and gain a small amount of shield that is not that good. So this skill literally makes Sargon worse. That's why it's probably the worst skill in the game. The only time Anu's Fury, which is his 4th skill, actually becomes a good skill is when you go for Sargon's expertise, because after you expertise a Sargon, he's going to trade better than the previous versions. Though that is definitely the worst skill in the whole of Rise of Kingdoms. Now overall, some commanders have extremely garbage skills, but every commander has a skill that's going to be worse than another skill. However, it doesn't make them a bad commander. So the whole purpose of today's video was to give you guys a chance to decide whether or not you're going to expertise a commander, and also deciding if you don't expertise them, which skills you should try and skip. So for example, I'm hoping that now people know if they were going to get Sargon the Great, that they don't even unlock the 4th skill if they don't want to expertise him. That was the whole point of today's video, and if you did learn something new, I just want to say consider joining the Archer Syndicate Discord, which will be linked in the comment down below. I'm pointing down right now and you can't even see that. Also, in the description, I will have the Discord link as well, so consider joining. It's a great way to get notified when my videos come out and chat with fellow channel members and myself. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.